seen this image before?
Can we pretend that airplanes in this night sky are like soothing stars that could really use a wish right now, wish right now, wish right now? What?
What about this one? Or this one? If so, then you are likely familiar with DeviantArt, the art sharing platform and community that each of these memes originated on. It
Huh.
became the largest online artist community in the 2000s and gained notoriety around the rest of the web in the 2010s for spawning memes like the ones I just showed you. It started to lose steam towards the end of the 2010s, and what happened after that
Steam.
is a tale more tragic than any of the works of William Shakespeare. But before we can talk about DeviantArt's fall, first we have to talk about its rise. To do that, we must travel back to the distant year of 2000.
Wow.
DeviantArt was
All the
launched
way
in
back
August of
then.
that year by three American tech bros, Angelo Sotira, Matthew Stevens, and Scott Jarkoff. It was initially a website for sharing
Jarkov.
custom skins for applications like Winamp, which, for those who have only ever known Spotify or Apple Music, was a media player for Windows that was highly customizable.
Oof, the
Remember when
old
you used to be
days.
able to customize things? Everyone and their mother was launching websites around this time, but shortly after DeviantArt launched, the dot-com bubble started to burst. The DA founders knew that they were going to have to pivot if they wanted to survive. Prior to this time, there was no real central community for artists to congregate and share their work online. Most art sharing was done in disparate forums and message boards. It was decided that DeviantArt would expand to become a place where all different kinds of art could be shared, not just skins. DeviantArt users were called deviants, and the works they uploaded were called deviations. When uploading a deviation, users could choose what category it belonged to: digital, traditional, photography, literature, etc. And you could browse by category to find deviations you liked that you could then favorite or comment on. You could also just
Mm-hmm.
browse the front page of most popular deviations of any category or check the daily deviations, featured artworks handpicked by the DeviantArt staff. If you found an artist whose work you particularly liked, you could watch them and be notified every time they uploaded. In addition to deviations, users could also post journals, which were like blog posts that were featured on their profiles. Profiles were also highly customizable. You could organize your deviations into folders, choose different widgets to appear on your
Man, the old
page, and
school
arrange the
DeviantArt looks
layout.
so
People who had the
crazy.
paid membership, known as Core, could further customize the look of their profile using HTML, similar to how MySpace profiles could be customized back in the day, in addition to other benefits like no ads. People could leave comments on each other's profiles and send other users free llama badges that I don't think really did anything. You could display your llama collection on your profile, and it always felt nice when you received one. I feel like no one talks about that late 2000s, early 2010s era of the internet when everyone was obsessed with llamas for some reason, myself included. Users could collaborate and socialize with similar artists by joining and posting their artwork to groups, which were usually based around some sort of theme, like country, fandom, or style of artwork. Artists could even make money off of their work by selling prints through DeviantArt's built-in print-on-demand shop, or by offering commissions. There were a variety of other features introduced over the years, but these are the main ones that I remember from the golden age of the site. DeviantArt's green color scheme, DA logo, and fan-created mascot, who apparently is called Fella, soon became
Really?
iconic.
That's his
It wasn't
name?
just an
Fella.
online gallery, portfolio, or art marketplace, it was a social network, predating even early social media like MySpace and Facebook. By 2011, it had become the 13th largest social network and the largest online art community, with tens of millions of users and hundreds of millions of artworks. Many artists credit it with being instrumental to their artistic development and later professional careers in art, as it gave them exposure and helped them make connections in the industry, or even inspired them to pursue art in the first place. Even for those who are just hobbyists, DeviantArt helped them make lifelong friends or even meet romantic partners. I remember there was this
Whoa,
long
damn.
distance lesbian couple I used to follow back in the day who I believe had met each other on DeviantArt, and I looked them up again when I was researching, and they are still together. It looks like they're married and living together now, so yeah, love wins. I also think DeviantArt had a notable
That's
influence
an
on the
interesting
online
side
culture of the
story.
2000s and early 2010s. As I mentioned a moment ago, the site has blessed us with a plethora of iconic memes. Various art styles and trends originated and became popular on DA, eventually spreading beyond it and coming to define the era. For instance, I'm sure anyone online in the late 2000s remembers the emo scribble style that eventually made its way off of DeviantArt and into Hot Topic. DA
Yeah,
also
I
became the
remember
home for
that.
a lot of niche communities, like the furry anthro community and
Ugh.
various fandoms, especially of anime and manga. Fan art was huge on DA, and soon it wasn't just fan art of anime and manga that was drawn in an anime style. Anything and everything became animeified. You can see
Yep,
this by looking
the
at
old
my old
school
DeviantArt profiles
when
from
anime was
2012,
basically just
both in the stuff I was
blowing up.
posting and in my favorites. Cosplayers also use DA to show off elaborate photography of their costumes. I would argue
Whoa.
that DeviantArt played a significant role in the rise in popularity of anime in the West throughout the 2000s, watering the seeds that were planted when Western TV stations started airing shows like Pokemon, Sailor Moon, and Dragon Ball Z in the 90s. Before sites like Tumblr and Amino existed, DeviantArt was a primary hub for anime fans online. I'm sure there were
Facts.
many kids who stumbled across the site and
Like
discovered
straight up, there
anime
was
through
like
it,
a ton of fan
and I
art and
know it deepened
everything.
my interest in anime and manga. In general, I feel like DeviantArt tended to attract people who were a little bit weird or whose interests were a bit niche, and provided a community where they could meet like-minded people and feel like they belonged. However, as we got into the 2010s, more general social media sites started to dominate the web. Artist and fan communities began to form on up-and-coming platforms like Twitter, Tumblr, and Instagram, and people started to migrate there from DeviantArt so their art could reach a wider audience. Professional artists started to move to emerging platforms specifically meant for people working or trying to break into the industry, like ArtStation and Behance. This meant that there were primarily two kinds of artists
Behance.
remaining on DeviantArt: inexperienced and usually young fan artists, and fetish artists.
Ugh.
DA's policies didn't technically allow sexually explicit artwork to be posted, but there are plenty of niche fetishes that don't seem overtly sexual on the surface, so it appears pretty innocuous unless you know what you're looking at. And this kind of artwork thrived on the site. It is called DeviantArt, after all.
I mean, yeah.
DeviantArt started to gain a bit of a reputation around the internet for being where the middle school age weeaboos and perverted freaks hung out. As I'm sure most of us remember all too well, cringe culture became huge in the 2010s, and DeviantArt users were often victims of it. Finding pieces of art on DA that were thought to be weird or poor quality and reposting them on Reddit, 4chan, or Twitter for people to mock them was a common practice during this time. Even to this day, I'll sometimes see YouTube videos with titles like "The freakiest things ever posted to DeviantArt" in my recommended, and then you click on the video and it's just art for a fetish that's maybe a little out there but completely harmless, or stuff that was very clearly drawn by someone who is neurodivergent or a child. The prevalence of certain fandoms or communities on DA that were widely viewed as cringe, such as My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, Sonic the Hedgehog, and furries, also contributed to its reputation and treatment by the rest of the internet. I would still much rather see a million MS Paint pregnant Sonics drawn by someone who learned how to draw through a how to draw manga book they got at the Scholastic Book Fair than a bunch of AI generated slop, but
Um, 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 fine. Let's just.
I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah.
Despite the disdain from the wider internet, the DeviantArt community remained relatively tight-knit in the early 2010s, even as the site underwent a rebrand in 2014, changing its iconic logo to this more minimalist design. They finally launched a mobile app that year as well. A little late, and apparently it was buggy as all hell, but better than nothing, I suppose. But as we reach the second half of the 2010s, the downfall begins. As with all website downfalls, it begins with a sale. GeoCities was sold to Yahoo, Tumblr was also sold to Yahoo, Twitter was sold to Elon Musk, and DeviantArt was sold to Wix in 2017.
Wix,
website hosting
of
and
all
development
things.
company. The name may sound familiar to you, as they frequently sponsored creators here on YouTube.com. But now that I've said that, you might be thinking that you haven't seen a Wix sponsorship in a minute. Assuming most of the YouTubers you watch are, like me, socially conscious leftists who try to maintain some integrity in the companies they work with, that's because Wix is an Israeli company. Well, just because they're Israeli doesn't mean they support the actions of their government, I hear some of you saying. I mean, yeah, sure, I don't support everything my government does, like refusing to stop sending arms to Israel. I'm afraid that's not the case here, though. In late 2023, shortly after the beginning of the ongoing conflict in Gaza, Wix fired an employee at their Dublin office for making comments on her social media that were critical of Israel. Shortly afterward, internal company Slack messages were leaked to the Irish Times that revealed that after the conflict began on October 7th, a channel had been created called Supporting Israel Narrative that encouraged employees to join a company initiative to create videos and creative campaigns on social media to support Israel's narrative, push back against the fake narrative pushed by Hamas and show Westernity in posts about Israel as, quote, "Unlike the Gazans, we look and live like Europeans and Americans." At the same
What?
time, they warned employees not to focus on numbers when discussing the attacks on Israel, as the number of casualties in Gaza will be significantly higher, and, quote, "difficult pictures of injured Gazans had been circulating in the media." This apparently wasn't even the first time employees had received communications regarding the tensions between Israel and Hamas, and employees at the Dublin office had raised concerns about this previously. I'm not really sure why
Okay.
Wix thought their Irish employees would be cool with spreading settler colonial propaganda, but okay. The employee who was fired did successfully sue Wix for wrongful dismissal, but she has said that she had essentially been blacklisted from working in the tech industry after the incident, and as a result, lost her apartment and had to go on welfare. Well, okay,
Jesus.
Wix sucks, you may be conceding, but none of that directly concerns DeviantArt.
If
Well,
only.
unfortunately, it seems the geopolitical concerns of its new owner may have had a direct effect on DeviantArt at one point. In early 2018, Syrian DA user Mithril made a journal post claiming that he had been unable to log into his account without the use of a VPN since March 2017. Just 1 month after Wix acquired DA. He later discovered that users in Iran were having the same problem. When he reached out to DA support about this issue, they told him that, quote, "certain geo IP addresses are blocked as a result of DeviantArt's compliance with regulations from the United States Department of the Treasury related to sanctions." At the time, Syria was being sanctioned by the US due to the civil war happening within the country. But right away, this didn't make a whole lot of sense to Mithril. The sanctions had been in place for several years at this point, so if DeviantArt was supposedly legally required to geoblock users in sanctioned countries, why were they only doing so now? He was also still able to access other American websites like Facebook, Tumblr, and YouTube just fine. He expressed dismay that geopolitical events beyond his control had interfered with his ability to access one of his favorite websites, especially since he had used art as a way to cope with living through war. In the comments of his post, there was significant backlash from other users against DeviantArt's decision to block users in certain countries, and someone even started a change.org petition to get them to reverse the ban, which they did eventually do. The fact that they did further proves that the compliance with regulations reasoning was complete and utter bullshit. I just find it interesting that this only happened once Wix took over, especially given that Syria and Iran just so happen to be considered enemy states of Israel. I'm not saying anything, I'm just saying. As ethically questionable as all that is, I think it flew under the radar for most DeviantArt users. Wix didn't start making any major changes to the site until later in 2018 when they announced that the site was going to undergo a big update and refresh known as DeviantArt Eclipse. It was going to have a completely new look, sleeker and more professional looking, similar to ArtStation, and would now be ad-free. The update was first rolled out to core members before becoming available to all users in 2019, and the backlash was swift and brutal. I think there's always some pushback when sites try to implement significant changes because people don't like when familiar things suddenly change, which as an autistic person, I completely understand. But Eclipse was like actually really bad, like practically broke the whole website bad. It was noticeably slower and buggy as all hell. The UI and UX design choices were bafflingly abysmal. Instead of streamlining things, they actively made the site more cumbersome and annoying to navigate and use. Things that used to be relatively simple to do, like checking your notifications, now required multiple extra steps for some reason, and everything just looked bad and weird. Poor spacing, weird cropping, lack of visual distinction between elements, I could go on. Eclipse also removed a ton of features, like the majority of profile customization options, the ability to browse works by category, and the browse more like this search feature, to name just a few. Many core members felt like their memberships were now worthless, because some features, like the ability to use the site ad-free, had been given to all users, while others, like HTML profile customization, had been completely removed. For a time, users were able to toggle between Eclipse and the old site, but that was removed in 2020, making Eclipse permanent. Some features were fixed or restored in subsequent years, but not enough for there to be any meaningful improvement to the site overall. For instance, the browse more like this option does exist once again, but it's not very good. If I click more like this on this Homestuck drawing I posted in 2013, it shows me a bunch of drawings of Princess Zelda, which is similar to another drawing I posted that shows up here, but there is no Homestuck to be found anywhere. Oh, and they added ads back to the website in 2023.
Ugh.
Wonder why? My theory as to why all of this happened is that DeviantArt was already kind of in decline when it was sold to Wix. As I said before, most of the more professional artists had left to go to ArtStation or other social media sites, and DeviantArt had started to garner sort of a seedy reputation. I think they wanted to try and entice the serious artists back to their platform and seem more professional, likely to appease corporate shareholders or something. As I spoke about
Maybe.
in my
It
video
seems
about the loss
reasonable.
of profile customization online, it was common to see websites become more homogenous and frankly boring throughout the 2010s, as the web became increasingly ruled by corporate monopolies. These changes didn't serve the existing DeviantArt user base at the time though, so yeah, no shit they weren't happy. A lot of people were also annoyed that DA made all these unnecessary and unasked for changes while failing to fix any of the actual problems that had plagued the site for years, such as the high number of scam and bot accounts. And I don't think they were even really successful at getting the pros to use their site again, so what was this all even for? They did manage to bring a secret third type of user to their site though, grifters. In 2021, DeviantArt unveiled a new feature called DeviantArt Protect, a copyright detection system that would notify users if their art had been reposted by another user so they could file a DMCA takedown notice. Sounds great in theory, right? Except it was only available for works posted less than 3 months ago unless you paid for a core membership. Also, the way that DeviantArt chose to announce this was by sending out an email to all of its users with the subject line DeviantArt Protect, notifying you of possible infringement, which alarmed several people as it made it sound like either their artwork had been stolen or they were being accused of theft.
Yeah, pretty much. It
When
does sound.
NFTs became the hot new grift, DeviantArt Protect was expanded to also notify users if their artwork had been found for sale on an NFT marketplace. It was clear this was coming more from a place of trying to capitalize on the NFT hype though, as opposed to actually protecting the site's users. In their post announcing this, the DA staff also gleefully announced that users could claim NFTs that they had minted, link them to the marketplace where they were being sold, and include the blockchain metadata on the deviation page, essentially allowing people to use DeviantArt to advertise NFTs.
NFTs have always been
last,
stupid.
we get into the AI of it all. I am operating under the assumption here that you already know why NFTs and AI art are bad, but if you don't, frankly, I don't have time to get into that right now. Google
Fair.
is free. From here on out, I'm going to be referring to them as AI-generated images because I don't even consider them to be art, which should tell you exactly what my feelings about generative AI are. If you're some pro-Gen AI bootlicker, just click off the video now. I can see you typing an angry comment, but you're wasting your energy because I'm not going to read it. As AI image generators
Or you're gonna get
became
lost
more
amongst the others.
sophisticated, DeviantArt was flooded with AI slop. While other artist spaces, both on and offline, created rules disallowing anything AI generated, DeviantArt did not, much to the annoyance of most of its user base, who are now struggling to find art that had actually been created by a human, or were having their own creations buried by dead-eyed anime girls with 6 fingers. Worse yet, in 2022, DeviantArt introduced their own AI image generator called DreamUp, created in collaboration with Stability AI, the makers of the Stable Diffusion generator.
I haven't
Immediately, this
seen
sparked
that.
outrage because DreamUp had specifically
again, I
been
barely
trained
use the
on the
thing.
millions of images that have been uploaded to DeviantArt over the past 2 decades, without the uploader's knowledge or consent. This meant that people could request that DreamUp generate them an image in the style of a specific artist on DA. Users who uploaded images that were created using AI were supposed to mark them as such, as well as tag any artists they had used in their prompts, but I have no idea how strictly this is enforced. If you didn't want people to be able to create AI images inspired by your artwork, you had to fill out an opt-out request form, which says the following. Currently, we'll be approving this ability for free to artists who are most likely to have been sourced by Stable Diffusion. In this first version of the opt-out process, we will only be considering accounts that follow best practices, including but not limited to an up-to-date email and any social accounts linked in your DeviantArt profile's About section. Once we have received your request, our staff will review it manually, and if approved, you will receive an email within 10 business days. So even if you fill out this form,
10
it's not
days.
guaranteed they'll let you opt out, which is insane to me. You shouldn't have to opt out in the first place. It should be opt-in. But I'm sure they know that if it was, very few people would likely choose to do so. At some point, they added the ability to place a no AI label on your deviations to prevent third-party AI datasets from scraping them.
That I remember.
This is too little too late in my opinion, because everything on DeviantArt has likely already been scraped long before this feature was introduced.
Yeah,
An
it's not
option
that
to
difficult to
suppress
copy
AI while
paste.
browsing was also eventually added, but this relies on people accurately tagging their posts as being created using AI. And while I was browsing the homepage with this setting turned on, there was definitely still some AI stuff that slipped through the cracks. Despite the majority of their user base's displeasure at what DeviantArt had become, DA was only too happy to promote AI artists. In 2024, the official DA Twitter account tweeted congratulating a user by the name of Azaris AI for being one of the site's top sellers, apparently having made over $25,000 in less than a year.
Wow.
One quick look at this person's account shows you that they upload AI-generated images en masse. Not surprising, given they literally have AI in their name.
I mean, they're
Most of
transparent.
which are suggestive images of furries and anime characters that sold for less than $10. I do find it
If I learned one thing is apparently that gooning stuff is apparently selling. Which just makes me wonder if I should pick it up too, but haven't really gone that deep down yet.
quite funny that DeviantArt seemingly gave up on trying to be a serious professional art website as soon as they realized all the money is in furry porn. Who is
Yeah.
this, though? If you want a jacket to muscular furries with improbably large bulges, there are subreddits full of that stuff for free. Twitter user Wireframes evidently had the same question and decided to look into it further. When examining Azaris AI's sales, he noticed that most of them came from blank profiles with similar names and account creation dates that had all purchased dozens of Azaris AI's images, along with AI slop from other users. He speculated that there might be some sort of pump and dump scheme going on here, where accounts like Azaris AI use bots or sock puppet accounts to artificially inflate the value and popularity of their work,
Yeah,
so that
seems
more
fair.
people will find it and they can justify charging more for it. This surely violates DeviantArt's terms of service, but when it was brought to their attention, they outright denied the allegations. Wireframes uploaded a video to YouTube summarizing his findings, and DeviantArt copyright claimed it. Don't you just
Wow.
love how YouTube lets people abuse the DMCA? And I mean, why wouldn't DeviantArt look the other way? They take a cut of artist sales, so they're benefiting from letting Azaris AI and their ilk get away with this.
Yeah.
Allegedly, in Minecraft, etc. Don't sue me, I can't afford a lawyer. But you know who can afford a lawyer? 3 artists who sued DeviantArt along with Midjourney and Stability AI in 2023. Sarah Anderson, who my millennial viewers may know from the Sarah Scribbles webcomics,
Oh.
and illustrators Kelly McKernan and Carla Ortiz brought a class action lawsuit against these companies, accusing them of copyright infringement, unfair competition, and breach of contract. They claimed that the companies had infringed on the rights of millions of artists by training their AI tools on images scraped from websites like DeviantArt without the artist's consent. The
Which
judge
they did,
overseeing
obviously.
the case initially dismissed the unfair competition and breach of contract charges, but allowed them to refine their case and try again, which they did, bringing on 7 other artists as plaintiffs and providing additional evidence. In 2024, the judge ruled that the plaintiffs could pursue the copyright infringement case, finding that they had successfully argued that the companies had violated artists' rights by illegally storing their copyrighted works to train AI tools on.
Let's go.
And that these AI image generators were, by design, created to facilitate this kind of copyright infringement. This is a great step forward, not just in this case, but hopefully in regulating generative AI tools in general. There haven't been any major updates to the case since then, at least not that I could find, so I'm assuming it's still ongoing. And hopefully there is a favorable outcome for the artists. Unfortunately,
Hopefully.
there are very few online spaces left for artists in 2026 that haven't been tarnished by corporate greed in some way. ArtStation has a similar rampant AI infestation and is also full of bots and scammers. Etsy, allegedly an artist and artisan marketplace, has been overrun by AI, AliExpress dropshippers, and low-effort 3D printed garbage, which is a whole video in itself that I might make someday. Any image you upload to X, the Everything app, gets fed to Grok to generate Elon Musk's AI girlfriends. Tumblr and Instagram have extremely strict content moderation, so if you upload something with even a hint of nipple, it gets taken down immediately. Not to mention, Instagram seems to be deprioritizing images in favor of Reels. Many artists have felt like they have had to turn to Reels or TikTok in order for their art to be seen. but sharing art or the art making process through vertical videos isn't something that feels natural for a lot of artists.
Not to
There have been a
mention
few valiant attempts in recent years
soul
to
crushing.
create a DeviantArt replacement, such as Kara and Artful, but none of them have really taken off. There is a decent artist community growing on Blue Sky, but I have my qualms about Blue Sky. The last safe haven for artists seems to be Newgrounds, which has taken a firm anti-AI stance. While DeviantArt is still around and artists do still use it, it's such a shadow of what it once was that it might as well be dead. And it's an immeasurable loss both for the online artist community and the internet as a whole. Did you ever use DeviantArt? Do you still? Did your teacher ever open DeviantArt in class on the projector and inadvertently show the whole class furry inflation porn? Because
Very
what mine did.
specific.
I would love to know your thoughts down in the comments. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, liking, subscribing, sharing, or becoming a channel member are all very much appreciated. I'll catch y'all in the next one.
Well, that was rather crazy as a story, not gonna lie. Did not expect that. Quite literally did not expect that.